Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mind Castle podcast. In this episode, we're going to be wrapping up one of our favorite books from last year called Essentialism. And this is our fourth part, I think, to this lovely series that we've been doing that usually starts out with like, hey, let's make a podcast on this. That would be cool. And then it's like, nah, we're going to make four. So yeah, we're on our last one though. So homeward stretch. The book is actually split into 4 sections, so it worked out perfectly. But today we're going to be talking about executing. So the book is all about talking about how to discern the really, really important things in life, the things that truly matter, instead of just listening to all the noise that's out there. And so it's, discerning and eliminating. And then the last part of the book is called executing. How do we actually do this? Which is by far the hardest part of the whole book. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'm still working on that section. I haven't actually read all of it yet. So I guess Reagan will take most of the spotlight on this one, and I'll just be here to ask questions. So anyway, I guess jump in wherever you want.
So have you read any of that part of the?
Yes, I just started it.
Of part 4 of the book, the execute part.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question to ask here is, how do we make doing the vital few things almost effortless? That's the whole premise. So again, this book, for those that are watching, because we're now on YouTube, by the way. So you're finding what's essential. Now that you've figured that out, and it goes through this whole process, the last one that we did was on, eliminating all those things that aren't essential, so that what's left is the most important. Right. So once you've done that, by nature, it should make the important things that much easier to do. Or that much easier to execute on. And so his thing is, if you do that, the important thing should end up being essentially effortless in your life.
I see.
Which is a really powerful concept. He actually wrote a follow-up book called Effortless.
Effortless.
I haven't read it yet, but I've heard it's really good. Diving into this a lot more. But a lot of it comes down to some pretty basic principles. I think we all know this stuff. That was the thing with this book. And he kind of says it in this book too. This isn't like earth-shattering, groundbreaking research. We all kind of know it, and we just need a little nudge that says, hey, hold up. You need to think about this.
Do it.
Let's just jump into some of these. So one of the first ones is this concept of buffer. So have you...
Right. That's actually the chapter I'm in right now.
Oh, really? You're in the chapter called... I think that's...
I'm in the buffer chapter.
Chapter called buffer. Buffering... is not a term that happens when you have slow internet and your YouTube video doesn't load. Buffering. Anyways.
Dial-up internet reference.
Yeah, dial-up internet. Does anybody remember? Anyways, back to this. So buffering, the unfair advantage of creating buffer. Now, I wrote a newsletter on this concept because there's another term called margin. Are you familiar with that book?
Yeah, we've margin. Yeah.
The book Margin. Really good read. Essentially, if you don't have margin, all kinds of things start snowballing out of control, or they can. He uses the term buffer. I think it's essentially the same thing. So I'll just read a quote, page 184. Essentialists accept the reality that we can never fully anticipate or prepare for every scenario or eventuality. The future is simply too unpredictable. Instead, they build in buffer to reduce the friction caused by the unexpected. Really, really good example, very basic, is financial literacy around you should have an emergency fund set up for 3 to 6 months, worst case scenario of living expenses, 3 to 6 months saved in cash, ready to go, right? Why?
Buffer zone.
Like
that way when something happens, it doesn't you have that cushion because it saves you from it. Otherwise, like you said, everything could snowball very, very quickly.
I think we talked about this on another podcast where you had I think it was a friend who had gotten in a situation like that where just a couple things more would have went wrong, and he would have lost everything, been homeless, whatever. And it was right on that line because you need more buffer for the unexpected.
He actually did go homeless.
Did he really?
Yeah. Oh. It only lasted about a day, but just the perfect line of events happened. And that was it. Something I found out with all of that, and something that I learned after that was, I forget what the time frame was. It was either 3 days to a week. But he said I was reading about it or whatever, and they said most people in the U.S. are 3 days to a week from being homeless.
As in, if they got kicked out of their apartment and maybe lost their job.
Yeah, like some critical events like that aren't like crazy, like this guy had his car repoed and taken away from him. He had his camera gear in it, which was what he used for his work, where he was working, he was renting the camera gear from them to do freelance work. And so now he lost his camera gear with his car, and now he lost his job because he doesn't have the camera gear, and now he owes all this money. And like, boom, just like that. That was the perfect little clinch that had to happen.
Whoa.
And
that is a bad day. That's a lot of stuff to go wrong in a day. Wow. So I've become a huge fan of margin in the last year or so. And you can think of margin in terms of really a lot of different things. Time is one. There are certain people that we all know, we all have them in our lives, that they just never have time. They are just, I'm up to here. The one I hear a lot from some people in my life, I'm up to here in alligators, like, I can't take it anymore. It's like, I would feel sorry for you, but that is your choice. Like, they chose to pack. And this isn't because they're like working 3 jobs to pay the bills kind of thing. This is they overbooked themselves.
Yeah.
All on their own volition. It wasn't like they were forced to, they're trying to feed their kids and they got to make the extra money. It was just they overbooked themselves because they couldn't say no, whatever. Well, guess what? There's no margin in that schedule, and that can work. You look at their calendar and there's like 15 minutes of free time in the entire 24-hour period or something. And you're like, okay, you know what I mean? All it takes is one thing to go over schedule or one thing to get messed up in that schedule, and your whole day is ruined. Yeah. Because now everything snowballs out of control.
Right.
Oh, I see this happen all the time with people, and it's kind of sad.
And basically that can happen in more important things, like with what he's talking about, like emotional things or professional things or that. Yeah, that's really interesting. And the analogy he used was like a buffer zone basically means that 2 things never come in contact. So it fluctuates and spreads and squishes, but it never actually touches. Those 2 things that you have separated never actually connect.
Oh, it's a whole thing. And I want to do a podcast on this at some point. It's on my list of best books for last year. Very unusual book for me to read, but it's called Into Thin Air, about the Mount Everest disaster in 1996. It's the single greatest disaster in mountaineering on Mount Everest. I think it was, I might get this wrong. I think it's like 8 people died in a single day on Mount Everest, which is, a lot. And so, and he tells a story as a journalist. He was a journalist that actually summited. He went with the team. Like, he was a mountaineer that also was a journalist, basically. So he's keeping notes. He like writes a whole book about it. He's coming at it from a journalist perspective, which is really good because you have a lot of record of what happened up there. Because there's not many people up on top of Mount Everest when this disaster happened, and he outlines it brilliantly. It's a brilliant read, and very sad, obviously. And he doesn't use this exact terminology, but essentially all the fatalities come down to a lack of margin in one way or another. And I'd like to do at some point, maybe we'll do an actual episode on that, just breaking that story down a little.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Really practically, hey, they brought just enough oxygen to make the climb and back down. No big deal. What happens if you end up being up there longer than you thought? Suddenly you have no more margin, you run out of oxygen. This is a really big deal when you're at the top of the world at 30,000 feet. Things like that were minor, but you stack enough of them up and it just results in pretty significant disaster. Same concept. I use the term margin. This guy uses buffer. It's the same thing. You got to build those buffer zones into your life. Okay, so we're going to keep going here. That was one of the keys on it makes executing on the important things easier when you do such things. Another one is this rule of subtraction, he calls it, or something to that effect. Another quote, an essentialist produces more, brings forth more by removing more instead of doing more. Let me just read that again. Essentialist produces more by removing more instead of doing more.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
It's counterintuitive though.
Yeah.
A lot of people
it's baked in. It makes sense because it's baked into that entire book.
That's true. Like, he's kind of been building up to this point.
Yeah.
The whole way through. So another just simple concept along those lines. Instead of jumping into the project, take a few minutes to think. Ask yourself, what are all the obstacles standing between me and getting this done? What is keeping me from completing whatever the thing is? Make a list of those obstacles. And you could do this for anything. And again, this is another episode coming at some point. I mentioned it to you when we were WhatsApping about some of this, the law of inversion. Oh, yeah. This is very similar to that, except inversion takes us to a whole nother level, and it's amazing and stuff. And we'll talk about it sometime. But essentially listing out all the things that would make you fail. So it's like, oh man, I need to spend more time with my kids. Get a pen and paper and actually specifically note, okay, what are the obstacles? I'm working too many hours. I don't have time. I don't make a list, get really specific, figure out those obstacles, and then actually start eliminating some stuff, subtract some of those things.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'm actually making a video on basically that exact same thing right now.
Really?
It's a total inversion. So it's like a really, really famous YouTuber named Better Ideas. His name is Joey. What's his last name? He has a really German last name, actually. It's like Schwarzen something or another. So yeah, he's pretty cool, but he lives in Canada and stuff. And he's really famous for like 2 or 3 of his videos where he does the complete opposite. So it's like 7 tips on how to ruin your life and, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's basically that style. It's going to be, but it's about how to never achieve goals in your life. And it's basically this. It's like you flip everything around and it's like, hey, do this if you don't want to achieve your goals. Do this. And it really puts a different spin on it. And it's like, instead of saying, oh, I should probably do that, it's like, oh, I am doing that. Wait a second, that's bad. And it totally flips it around. And it gives people things to subtract instead of add. Because everybody's like, do this, do this, do this, or just stop doing this. And this is very much flipped. And it's like very clear on elimination and that exact practice, basically.
Instead of like, be more disciplined, be more motivated, be more whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's super fun to make. It's super depressing, but
yeah, that's right. You did one on that. I think how to ruin your attention span or something. Yeah, it was a great video, by the way, on Austin's YouTube channel. Check it out. Good stuff. Yeah, I was just reading Ali Abdaal's new book, Feel Good Productivity, which, by the way, is quite good. I was kind of surprised. It's fairly basic and again, not super earth shattering stuff. Okay,
right.
Everything that is going to be discovered on this has probably been discovered and written about. So don't expect change your life. But he had a point in there on motivation. And there's this motivational video, which I haven't seen yet, but this guy goes to this guru and says, what's the secret to financial freedom, or financial success? And he's like, meet me on the beach tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. Okay. So the guru, you meet him out there. He's like, okay, walk into the surf. Walks out into the surf. Walk out further. Walk out to the depth of your neck. Okay. And then the guru probably holds his head under the water for like a really long time until he's about to drown. And this is like a skit acted out on a video. And then he lets him up out of the water and the guy's gasping for breath. And he's like, why did you do that? He's like, when you wanted to succeed as bad as you wanted to breathe, you'll succeed. And the point of the whole video is if you can have that level of motivation, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Which is true.
It's very true.
Which is very true. But aren't we getting to motivation like the whole wrong way around? Like that seems like a very odd way of going about motivation.
That's not motivation.
Exactly. And that's the whole point that Ali Abdaal is making in this book. He's like, hey, hold up. Like that may work for a short term, life or death situation. But like, what about it when it comes to staying motivated to be there for your kids every day? Like it's going to feel so different. And you can't watch motivational videos like that every time you're feeling in a slump and bingo, it'll knock you back out of it. You got to go a lot deeper than that. And that's one of the reasons I love the subtract method here and the buffer zone, all these things we're talking about is simply making it to where that's the default choice is doing the right thing, is whatever it might be.
Removing what not to do makes everything what you need to do way easier.
Yeah, exactly. Like and I really appreciate that. And again, basically the whole premise of that particular book is making the things that you want to achieve in life, the ones that bring the most joy, essentially, is the whole premise of the book. Very similar to this thing with essentialism, cutting out all that extra fluff to where the stuff that's left is like the stuff you're like, yes, that is the thing I want to do. I want to live for that. Not saying you'll never do stuff that's boring or mundane. Of course not. You're going to always have that stuff in life. Right. But the foundational pieces, what I'm trying to say here. So that was subtract. This next one's a really fun one. It's called the idea of progress. And that's simply the power of small wins. So whenever you are trying to execute on the things that matter, let's find ways to celebrate the small wins. And sometimes you have to create the small wins, know, but celebrate that instead of waiting for what I call the heavy lift. Have you seen that where like people are like, everything they're trying to do is this huge, gargantuan, massive, heavy lift project. Instead of breaking it down into the little pieces and celebrating, hey, we made progress here. Hey, we made progress. Like every day they can point to, I made progress on that.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty, that's something I've dealt with that a lot. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like maybe the way we were raised was a tad different with some of that. just because I remember having, chores and having like a lot of little things in our day as a kid that was pretty, I don't know, it was like kind of celebrated or like recognized as like little wins. For me, whenever I make a big goal, the very next thing is always how to break it down. Like remember when we had like cleaning jobs before school every day? It was like sweep the dining room, and it was like set in, it's like, this, get the sweeper, do this. It was like everything was broken down. And so like for me, that was very normal, I would say. Everybody faces it, but I think I haven't noticed it quite as much just because we were raised with that a little bit more maybe. But that's a very tempting thing. Like my friend messaged me the other day and he's like, I need to get buff. He's like the skinny, like runner, like 150 pounds maybe. And he's like 6'2", skinny as a rail. And he's like, I need to get buff. He's like, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to work out 4 times a week for 30 minutes. And if I don't, I will send you $200 in Cash App. And he's a very sporadic.
Deal. Can I become his friend
too? Yeah, he's a very
too?
Sporadic guy. Very sporadic. And so
that's awesome.
I could tell by the way he sent me the message. I was like, either he's really energetic or he literally just thought of this and sent this message before he changed his mind.
$200.
But I talked to him. I was like, very first thing I said was like, okay, deal. First of all, deal. Second of all, like, do you actually have a plan? Like, how are you actually going to do this? What are your exceptions? If you have to make an emergency trip home, or like he's in college, it's like all this stuff. Like, have you actually broken this down? And I guess that's kind of an example of processing that and thinking about that. Because I'm not about to agree to that, because I would feel horrible like checking in on him halfway through the year and finds out he hasn't done it in like a couple weeks. He's in college, he's super poor and all this stuff. So I want to make sure he's actually doing what he needs to do to make it happen. And he's like, yeah, next message, he's like, yeah, I've already broken it down. Like, here's the workout schedule. Here's what I'm going to do every day. Here's how long. Here's the exceptions. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, well, we're good.
$200. Let's
do
go.
it. He made his first week. So
that's amazing. Go him. Yep. But because he broke it down. So
exactly.
This is, we're recording this shortly after New Year's, right? And so guess what? All the gyms are full and everything. And, again, referring back to Ali Abdaal's book, he's like, man, he's tried this thing for years. New Year's would come around. He's like, all right, this year, this is going to be the year. I'm going to have washboard abs, bro. I'm going to like get a serious 6-pack. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be so jacked. And it just wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. It just would not happen. And he's like, man, why not? Like, I know the exercises to do, like I know how to do it, right? Like getting a 6-pack abs is not rocket science. And it came down to, actually, that's not really what he wanted. What he wanted was a healthy, fit body overall, like overall body health. And when you flip that switch, be like, oh, that's actually the thing I want.
Yeah.
Actually identifying what was the thing. And then you could start making progress on that thing. Instead, there were no wins to celebrate on the other one, because he had set this big goal out here somewhere that.
And it's like, you either get it or you don't.
Yeah. And he didn't even really want it. It was like this big, heavy lift. Whereas I want to maintain a very healthy lifestyle and be physically fit, holistic, like my whole body be fit.
Yeah.
Well, now that's a little different, because then you can celebrate that every day. Yeah. That's a habit that you do every day.
Right.
Of like, I ate well, I drank plenty of water, I got a good run in today. Look, whatever it might be. And for me, that was the same thing, like trying to keep my health up. That connects with me way better than I would be able to bench certain amount by X amount, and that works for some people. It doesn't work for me. So my thing is like, no, every day, like before I start work, I have to get a lot of movement in, because I know I'll just feel better instead of turning it into some big, I'm going to be, Mr. Olympia over here or something. It's just not going to happen, because it's just too big and scary. Whereas that way, every day I can celebrate, hey, yeah, I got some really good movement in. I feel good today.
Yeah. That's a really, I like that.
Anyway, so that was the point on progress. Another one here is called flow, which there's been tons of stuff written about flow and whatever, of course, but he's looking at maybe a little bit different. So he says flow, but the subtitle is chapter 18. Subtitle is The Genius of Routine. He quotes from some other person here. Routine in an intelligent man is a sign of ambition, which I really agree with. He uses the example of Michael Phelps, probably one of the best examples of insane routine.
Yeah.
And it pays off like crazy. And he actually breaks down, he actually describes the routine here. It goes on for a good
nuts.
while. It is pretty nuts. But basically this, you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, and you have a routine every time. This is what we're going to do. And that will translate into what's called the flow state, essentially, which we've talked about. There's books on it and what. Anyway, that's a very famous thing. But he's trying to get at the routine is the key here. You have to. Interesting, because I'm trying to develop. I'm teaching a course here in a couple weeks on the Middle East, which is going to be tons of fun. But man, it's scary and intimidating. I've never done something like this. Oh my goodness, what do I do? And trying to get into the flow of it is actually really hard.
Yeah.
But I've realized, hold up, if I make myself a cup of tea, which is a big deal,
right?
I sit down and I'm like, and I have to have it pre-planned. I'm going to work on X thing for 5 minutes. Like, it's crazy how easy it is to trick yourself. You start working on it and you're like, oh, this is kind of fun. After 5 minutes, hey, I could go another 5. I mean, before you know it, you've been there for 3 hours and you made huge progress. Like that's what I'm saying, routine. And if I can just do that every day, suddenly, bingo, I have a class. I built a class out of thin air. It didn't obviously just happen. It had to be like this routine thing that I do like every day.
And that's the little wins as well. Like that's actually setting those, it's baking those little steps into your routine instead of just saying like, goal, I'm going to make a master class and it's going to be great. Okay, that might be part of it, but then you have to make sub goals. And that sub goal might mean every day within 1 hour of waking up, I'm going to dedicate 5 minutes to this. And it's like, okay, and you did your 5 minutes. Awesome. You got the ball rolling. You're like early in the day. And it's like, we're not saying like, don't have those goals, like the big goals. Like we mentioned things like, I'm going to bench this certain amount, or like, I'm going to have abs, or like, I'm going to be, totally healthy, or I'm going to be whatever. And we set this big goal, like that's totally fine, but you have to be able to break it down into measurable steps beforehand. And that's the whole genius of goals. If people ever say that goals don't work for them, they're not doing them right. And so that's, I really like that, because you have to be able to break it down. You have to be able to see those little steps, knowing how to break it down and schedule it into, like, bake it into your routine. That is really, really important.
And I'm trying to find this, but I can't find it. Nuts. This is too bad. There's this fantastic quote by Matthew Dix, his book, Someday is Today, which I need to get a copy of. But there's a quote in there where he was meeting someone for lunch, I think it was, or something, and they were a couple minutes late. And then they were asking, like, how do you write so many books? Because he's got like kids and he's busy and all that stuff. And he's like, hey, you were several minutes late today. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No. That's not my point. My point is, in those 5 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever, that you were late today, I sat here and wrote X. I wish I could remember the number, X number of sentences today. And he said, you know how many sentences make up an average book? X amount of sentences. If I write this many sentences every day on my new book, by the end of the year, it'll be done. And when you actually start breaking it down, it's astounding. Like, it's not that much to where you could just make a point every day, that routine, that flow. I'm going to sit down and write on this book. And that's how he does it. Yeah. Ryan Holiday is another really good example of that. Every day he just sits down, I'm going to do this. I mean, he's got a farm, he's got a bookstore, he's got kids, all this stuff. Like, he's got other things going. It's not like he's sitting there for 12 hours a day writing these extremely successful bestsellers. That's how he does it. There's a bunch of other authors that talk about that. Okay. So one of the next ones here is the concept of focus. There's a whole world of science, neuroscience, whatever, on focus and how to have it and stuff, and we can get into that another time maybe, but essentially asking the question, what's important right now? Like, what's the most important thing to move me towards these goals? I've eliminated all this other stuff that we've been talking about the last number of episodes. It's time to execute on the vital few things that really matter. So what's important right now? What's going to move the needle towards those things that matter the most in life right now? And that may be, I just need to show up and work at my job really well and be the best employee ever. Or it may be something completely different. Whatever that might be, what's the most important thing? So always ask yourself that. I try to ask myself that a bunch of times every day, but sometimes I forget. And then next thing I know, I'm like, hanging out on Twitter or something, who knows? Anyways, or X. And then the last one is this concept of be. It's a bit cliche, but we're human beings, not human doings. And there's some truth to that. There's this quote from Socrates that goes along with this. I love Socrates, by the way. Have you read Socrates lately?
Nope.
Because it's pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, Socrates, brilliant dude. also got executed for, the stuff he taught. Anyways.
Yeah.
So this is what Socrates says. Beware the barrenness of a busy life. This concept of quietness and just being okay with your life, who you are, and resting in that. I think there's some real truth to that, because there is a deep barrenness in the busy life, and he's using busy in obviously a negative way. I mean, sometimes there's times when it's good to be busy. You don't want to be idle. Obviously,
right.
But there's something simplistic and glorious about that, which actually he uses Jesus as an example in this. Jesus lived as a carpenter and then did his ministry without wealth, political position, or material possessions. I think there's some real beauty in that. Jordan Peterson has a lecture on this, actually. Like, why did Jesus come as a carpenter? Like, come on, he's the king, right? Come on. Like, what a terrible way to show yourself as king. No, it's because real, regular, just being a regular guy kind of life there's value in that, is what that's telling us.
Right.
It's good to show up and have a craft that you do every day that's, nothing earth shattering, but be the best carpenter you can be, or whatever it might be. There's real beauty in that. And, and it's easy, especially,
especially in today's world.
You want to be famous. You want to like do something huge and awesome. And there's nothing wrong with that too, I suppose. But it says this, and talking about wrapping up all this stuff with essentialism that we were covered in the last number of episodes and so forth. Life will become less about efficiently crossing off what was on your to-do list or rushing through everything on your schedule, and more about changing what you put on there to begin with. And I think that so well sums up the whole premise of this book.
Yeah.
And really audit what's going on the to-do list.
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
going in the calendar.
Yeah.
All humans are really good at just getting distracted or sidetracked from the important things. We put stuff in our days that really shouldn't be there, like Netflix.
And then we try to figure out how to do all of it with all these cool fancy hacks. And it's like, no.
and then you end up building such a busy life that, back to Socrates, it's just this barrenness of rushing from thing to thing. And it's like, where's the time in there to reflect, enjoy it, go for a hike, be out in nature, be with your friends, whatever the things that, when you look back at the things that mean the most to you, the most powerful memories in your life, they're almost always with people, like doing something fun, doing something whatever, doing something meaningful.
Right.
It's almost never, oh yeah, man, I got that bonus at the job, got the whatever, got the Tesla. Like, those things are fine, I suppose, but they those things just make us busier. It's just more stuff. So pay attention to the things that matter. Build your schedule accordingly, and be careful with the barrenness of a busy life. Yeah, I really like that, especially to end with that. Like, that's a really good image, actually, of like when you think of like barren wasteland. It's like, ugh. You can run as fast as you want to on that wasteland, man. Ain't gonna get nowhere. Made so much progress. Much progress. So desert. Again, I think we've said this in other episodes, but do get a copy of this book. It's good stuff. Yeah, that definitely make you think. Very, very good book. To wrap it all up, this was part 4 on executing on the things that matter. So with the question, leave you with this question: how can we make doing the vital few things almost effortless? Like, those are the things that naturally bubbles to the surface of your life and pop out, in your calendar, and like, boom, you look at your calendar one day and you're like, great. It's not full of a bunch of bogus, quarterly meetings about, KPIs and all this stuff. It's actually about the things that matter. And, obviously maybe your calendar is full of all that stuff, and that's okay. But, or maybe you love those things, and maybe so, maybe it's like, hey, that's part of my job. I like that. But find the stuff that is what you really want to plow into. Make sure that's the stuff that makes it onto your calendar. Anyways, absolutely. So that's the book. That's a wrap. That is Essentialism. You know how it goes when we start these; they end up going longer than we expected. But this book had a lot of good stuff, and we took a bunch of rabbit trails in between. So it's really fun to wrap this one up. And hopefully y'all enjoyed this topic. It's interesting because the only other series we did was the one on Naval Ravikant. That was a 3-parter. But that one was more episodic with the concept. So it didn't. This one was a little bit. It was a little bit, but they kind of built on each other. Whereas that one was more just like bite-sized chunks of stuff that we found, like your mind getting blown on the law of second thermodynamics. Remember that?
I remember it, but I forget what the second law of thermodynamics is.
Yeah. So matter cannot be created or destroyed. That's the first law.
Okay.
But the second law is it takes energy to create order, essentially.
Yes.
So it's everything's an energy conversion.
Yes, I remember energy conversion.
I feel like I'd have to go back and look at the notes, make sure I'm describing it right. But go back and listen to that episode because like that is one the law of inversion, which we'll do again. We'll do an episode. We touched on it a little bit. But those two especially have been not like, oh yeah, I've heard of that before. Yeah, that's a good concept. It's been like, oh wow,
that's like that changes my life now.
Yeah, it's because the law of second law of thermodynamics is baked into the physical reality of the universe.
Yeah, you cannot escape it.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Like it's happening when I'm typing.
Exactly. So
that's cool.
That's why you look at some of the greatest scientists of the world, going back to the first principles concept, that they would build from places like that.
Yeah. Of
what is the physical laws of the universe and then build from that. Sir Isaac Newton, for example, been reading about him a lot lately. He's quite the guy, the famous quote, all I'm doing is thinking God's thoughts after him. I'm trying to get to the base reality of how God built the universe and then figured out from there, which he did. And it was awesome. And he figured out gravity and, all these laws that are so fundamental, to how we look at the world and stuff. So anyways, I remember that. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So go listen to those episodes. Anyway, that's a wrap on this series section. I don't even know what we would call it at this point, but thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought. And just a reminder, we are also on YouTube, which Spotify now has videos. If you didn't know that, you can just like swipe up and watch our lovely faces.
Yeah,
so
what's up with that?
You don't even need to go to YouTube if you don't want. I mean, whatever works best for you. We will hopefully be releasing a few more episodes for you shortly. And if you haven't checked out our personal YouTube channels, personal websites, you can find more info there and a whole bunch more content we are actively producing.
Over on X. Are you using X anymore?
Nah.
Twitter, as the case may be.
I don't. Nah.
No. I'm still pretty active over there, actually.
Trivial many for me right now.
I'm having fun over there every once in a while. Just throw stuff up there, see what happens. It's a good time. So anyway,
thanks so much for listening and watching. We will catch you in the next one.